The scent of wolfsbane clung to her skin like a death sentence. Elena Thornwood pressed her trembling hands against the cold stone wall of the holding cell, trying to remember how to breathe. 3 days ago, she had been nothing more than another nameless pack servant scrubbing blood from the Alpha's training grounds. Now she was a convicted murderer waiting for dawn and the executioner's blade. "They're saying you did it with your bare hands." The guard's voice drifted through the iron bars, casual, almost amused. "Ripped out the beta's throat while he slept. Didn't know you had it in you, little mouse." Elena didn't answer. Her throat was too raw from screaming her innocence to an Alpha who wouldn't even look at her during the trial. Alpha Kale Stormborn had sat on his throne of blackened oak, jaw clenched, silver eyes fixed somewhere beyond her as if she were already a ghost. When the council pronounced her guilty, he'd simply nodded once. The gesture had shattered something in her chest that would never heal. The moon rose higher beyond the barred window, full and merciless. In 6 hours, they would drag her to the execution platform. The entire Stormborn pack would gather to watch the traitor die. Elena wondered if her mother was watching from whatever realm the dead inhabited, if she felt ashamed that her daughter would meet the same fate she had, condemned for crimes she didn't commit. Footsteps echoed down the corridor, heavy boots on stone. Elena's pulse quickened despite herself. She knew those footsteps, had listened to them pace the halls above her servants' quarters for months, had memorized their rhythm like a forbidden song. Alpha Kale stopped outside her cell. Moonlight carved sharp shadows across his face, highlighting the scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw. A reminder of the war that had taken his father and left him to rule at 23, too young, too damaged, too alone. "You should have run." His voice was rough, scraped raw by something that sounded almost like regret. "When they first accused you, you should have fled to the border." Elena laughed, a broken sound that tasted like copper. "Run where? I'm packless, wolfless. I wouldn't last a night beyond your territory." "You might have lasted longer than you will here." She finally met his gaze. The silver of his eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, wolf rising close to the surface. "Why are you here, Alpha? Come to make sure I haven't somehow escaped? Or do you enjoy watching the condemned count their final hours?" His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he might leave without answering. Then he pulled something from his coat, a leather journal, edges worn, pages yellowed with age. He held it up to the bars. "My father kept records, everything, every judgment, every execution, every secret the council buried." His fingers tightened on the journal until his knuckles went white. "I found this 3 hours ago, hidden in a vault I didn't know existed." Elena's breath caught. "What does it say?" "That Beta Marcus wasn't killed by you." Kale's voice dropped to barely more than a whisper. "He was killed because he discovered Council Elder Thorn's plan to overthrow me. Marcus was going to expose them at the next full moon gathering." The world tilted. Elena gripped the bars to keep from falling. "Then why?" "Why did I let them convict you?" Kale's laugh was bitter as ash. "Because I didn't know. Because I was too blinded by grief and duty to question the evidence they placed before me. Because I failed you the same way my father failed your mother." Her mother? The words landed like a physical blow. "What do you know about my mother?" Kale opened the journal, fingers tracing faded ink. "Lydia Thornwood, accused of poisoning my mother, the former Luna, 15 years ago, executed at dawn on the winter solstice." He looked up, eyes burning. "Framed by the same council members who just condemned you. Elder Thorn wanted your mother's healing knowledge buried because she discovered he was selling pack secrets to rival alphas." Elena's legs gave out. She sank to the cold floor, the weight of truth crushing her. "You knew. All this time you knew my mother was innocent." "I didn't, not until tonight." He crouched, bringing himself level with her through the bars. "But I should have questioned it years ago. I should have demanded answers when I became Alpha. Instead, I let the council's poison infect everything, including my judgment of you." "So what now?" her voice cracked. You've discovered the truth hours before my execution. Do you expect gratitude? I expect nothing. Cale pulled a key from his pocket, iron glinting in the moonlight. But I'm offering you a choice. The key slid across the stone floor, stopping just within her reach. Alina stared at it like it might bite. Run, Cale said. Take the key, use the tunnels beneath the dungeons. They lead beyond the pack borders. I'll tell the guards you overpowered me, stole the key. By the time they organize a search, you'll be gone. And the council, Elder Thorn. I'll handle them. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. But it will take time. Weeks, maybe months to gather enough evidence to bring them down without splitting the pack into civil war. If you stay, you die at dawn. If you run, you live. That's all I can give you. Alina picked up the key. The metal was warm from his touch, impossibly heavy. Freedom, survival, everything she'd begged the moon for during 3 days of hell. And yet, if I run, they win. She looked at him through the bars. Your council buries another truth, another body. They'll just find someone else to frame when the next inconvenient person needs silencing. You'll be alive. I'll be nothing. Alina stood, legs shaking but holding. My mother died a convicted traitor. I won't die the same way. I won't let them write that ending for me. Cale rose slowly, eyes searching her face like he was seeing her for the first time. You understand what you're choosing. Dawn is 6 hours away. Even if I wanted to stop it now, the council has already announced your execution. The pack expects justice. Then give them justice. Alina's voice steadied, something ancient and furious rising in her chest. Real justice, not the council's lies. In 6 hours. You're the alpha, aren't you? She stepped closer to the bars, close enough to smell pine and smoke on his skin. You command this pack. If you truly believe I'm innocent, if you truly want to honor your father's failures and fix them, then prove it. Stand before your pack at dawn and tell them the truth. They'll riot. The council has spent years building their power. If I accuse Elder Thorn without undeniable proof. Then get proof. Alina thrust the key back through the bars. You have your father's journal. You have 6 hours and the desperation of a man who just realized he almost executed an innocent woman. If you can't find enough evidence in that time to at least delay my execution, then maybe you don't deserve to be alpha. The words hung between them, sharp as claws. Cale's expression shifted through a dozen emotions too quick to name before settling on something that looked like grim determination. You're asking me to go to war with my own council. I'm asking you to be the alpha your father should have been. Alina's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. The one who protects the innocent instead of executing them. The one who burns corruption instead of feeding it. Cale took the key, fingers brushing hers through the bars. The contact sent electricity racing up her arm, wolf recognition even though she'd never shifted, could never shift. Her wolf was broken, buried so deep it might as well be dead. But something in her recognized something in him, and the knowing was terrifying. If I do this, he said quietly, if I stand against them at dawn, there's no going back. Blood will spill, pack bonds will shatter. Everything my father built could crumble. Then let it crumble. Alina didn't look away, and build something better from the ashes. For a long moment, they simply stood there, predator and prey, alpha and accused, two people bound by tragedies that echoed across generations. Then Cale nodded once, sharp and final. 6 hours. He turned toward the corridor. Stay alive until then, Alina Thornwood, because if you're willing to fight for truth, then so am I. His footsteps faded into darkness. Alina sank back against the wall, heart hammering, mind spinning. She just refused freedom, refused survival, bet everything on an alpha who'd already failed her once. The moon watched through the window, silent and judging. Alina closed her eyes and whispered the same prayer her mother must have whispered 15 years ago. Let truth burn brighter than lies. Let justice come even if it destroys us. The moon offered no answer. It never did. But somewhere in the fortress above, an alpha was tearing through his father's secrets, and the sound of pages turning echoed like war drums in the night. Dawn would come, and when it did, either Alina would die on the executioner's platform, or the Stormborn pack would learn that monsters didn't always have fangs. Sometimes they wore council robes and called themselves Justice. The hours crawled past like wounded animals. Alina counted them by the movement of moonlight across her cell floor, silver turning to gray, gray fatting to the pale gold of approaching dawn. Her body ached from 3 days on cold stone. Her mind ached from hope, from the fragile, terrifying possibility that she might live to see sunset. Footsteps again, multiple sets this time. The guards coming early, perhaps. Or Cale returning to tell her he'd failed, that the evidence wasn't enough, that she should take the key after all and run while darkness still offered cover. But when the door opened, it wasn't guards. Council Elder Thorne stepped into the corridor, flanked by 2 of his personal wolves. The old man's face was all sharp angles and cold satisfaction, his silver hair gleaming like a blade in the torchlight. "Alina Thornwood," he smiled, and it was the smile of a predator who'd already tasted victory. "I thought I'd visit you before dawn. A courtesy, you might say. One final conversation before the pack gathers to watch justice served." Alina stood slowly, refusing to cower. "Justice, is that what you call it when you murder innocent people to hide your crimes?" Thorne's smile didn't waver. "Careful, girl. You're already condemned. Don't make your final hours more painful than they need to be." "The Alpha knows." The words left her mouth before she could stop them. "He found his father's journal. He knows what you did to my mother, what you did to Beta Marcus. It's over, Elder." For just a moment, genuine surprise flickered across Thorne's face. Then it hardened into something colder, crueler. "The journal, of course. I wondered when young Cale would find his father's little insurance policy." He stepped closer to the bars. "Do you know why Alpha Stormborn never used that information? Why he kept those secrets buried even as he died?" Alina's stomach twisted. "Because you threatened him." "Because he was weak." Thorne's voice dropped to a hiss. "Because he valued peace over truth, stability over justice. He knew what I'd done, what the council had done for decades. But he also knew that exposing us would tear the pack apart. So he chose silence. He chose to let your mother die to preserve his precious pack unity. And now his son knows. His son is even weaker." Thorne laughed, the sound like bones breaking. "Cale is young, idealistic, desperate to be better than his father. That desperation makes him reckless, dangerous, which is why the council has decided it's time for a change in leadership." Alina's blood went cold. "You're going to kill him." "We're going to give the pack what it needs. A stronger alpha. One who understands that some truths are better left buried." Thorne glanced at his wolves. "Your execution will proceed as scheduled, but there will be a second execution immediately following yours. Alpha Cale Stormborn, convicted of conspiring with a murderer to undermine pack justice." "The pack will never accept that." But even as she said it, Alina knew it was a lie. The council had been weaving their narrative for years, building loyalty, spreading poison. How many wolves would question them? How many would simply bow to the new alpha they installed? "The pack will accept what we tell them to accept." Thorne turned to leave. "Enjoy your final hour, Alina Thornwood. Take comfort in knowing you won't die alone. Your precious alpha will join you shortly." The door slammed shut. Alina gripped the bars until her fingers bled, rage and terror warring in her chest. She'd convinced Cale to fight, to stand against the council. And now he was walking into a trap that would end with his execution alongside hers. The moon was gone now, swallowed by approaching dawn. The first birds began to sing, their voices obscene in their cheerfulness. Somewhere above, guards would be preparing the platform, sharpening the blade, gathering the witnesses. Elena closed her eyes. I'm sorry, Mother. I tried to be braver than you. I tried to fight, but I think I just made everything worse. Then so faint she almost missed it, a sound. Scratching, metal on stone, coming from the wall behind her. Elena spun around. The stones were moving, shifting, ancient mortar crumbling as someone pushed from the other side. She stumbled back as an entire section of wall swung inward, revealing a hidden passage and a figure stepping through dust and darkness. Not Kale. A woman, maybe 50, with silver-streaked brown hair and eyes that glowed gold in the shadows. She wore the leather armor of a warrior, twin daggers at her hips, and around her neck, a pendant that made Elena's breath stop. Her mother's pendant, the one they'd buried with Lydia Thornwood 15 years ago. You're wondering if you're hallucinating, the woman said, voice rough but kind. You're not. I'm Myra Ashworth, and I was your mother's closest friend. I've been watching you for 3 days, waiting for the right moment. The right moment for what? Elena's voice shook. To rescue me, to tell me everything's going to be fine, because in case you haven't noticed, the council is about to execute me and the Alpha. The council is about to make the biggest mistake of their lives. Myra's smile was sharp as her daggers. They think they've won. They think they've backed Kale into a corner. They have no idea what he's been doing for the past 6 hours. What do you mean? Myra gestured to the tunnel behind her. Come with me, quickly. Dawn's in 30 minutes and we have a revolution to start. Elena didn't move. I'm not running, I told Kale. This isn't running. Myra's eyes blazed. This is making sure you're alive to watch the council fall. Now move, Thornwood. Your Alpha needs you, and your mother didn't die so you could waste her daughter's life on pride. The mention of her mother broke through Elena's paralysis. She stepped into the tunnel, and Myra pulled the wall closed behind them. They ran through darkness, Myra's hand firm on her arm, guiding her through twists and turns that seemed to go on forever. Then light. They emerged into a small chamber beneath what sounded like the Great Hall. Voices echoed overhead, hundreds of them, the pack gathering for the execution. But in the chamber, Kale stood surrounded by a dozen wolves Elena recognized as the younger pack members, the ones who'd always chafed under the council's strict rules. Spread across a makeshift table were documents, letters, ledgers, all covered in Kale's father's handwriting. Kale looked up when they entered. His eyes met Elena's, and something fierce and grateful flashed across his face. You came. I didn't have much choice, Elena said. Your friend broke into my cell. Good, Kale straightened, addressing the room. Then we're all here. The pack is assembled above. In 15 minutes, they expect to watch Elena Thornwood executed for Beta Marcus's murder. Instead, they're going to learn the truth about 15 years of corruption. One of the younger wolves, a woman with red hair and scarred knuckles, spoke up. The council has guards everywhere, Alpha. The moment you accuse Elder Thorn, they'll move against you. Let them. Kale's voice was pure steel. I spent 6 hours gathering every piece of evidence my father collected. Financial records proving Thorn sold pack secrets. Witness testimonies my father recorded but never used. Even a confession letter from one of Thorn's wolves who helped frame Lydia Thornwood. He looked at Elena. Your mother knew too much. She discovered Thorn was poisoning weak pack members to keep the Stormborn pack's reputation strong. She was going to expose him at the next gathering. So he poisoned my mother and blamed yours. Elena's knees buckled. Myra caught her. Easy. Why? Elena whispered. Why did your father stay silent? Because he was afraid. Kale's jaw clenched. Afraid of civil war, of losing control, of making things worse. He thought he could manage Thorn, contain him. Instead, he just gave the council 15 more years to consolidate power and destroy innocent lives. He stepped closer to Elena. I won't make my father's mistakes. Today the truth comes out, all of it, no matter what it costs. Above them, drums began to beat. The execution call. The pack's voices rose in an ancient chant, demanding justice, demanding blood. Cale held out his hand to Alina. "Walk with me. Stand beside me when I address the pack. Let them see the woman they condemned, alive and defiant. Let them see what their council tried to bury." Alina stared at his hand. Taking it meant stepping into chaos, into a battle that could tear the pack apart. Refusing it meant letting the council win, letting her mother's death remain a buried lie. She took his hand. His grip was warm, steady, absolutely certain. "Then let's show them what real justice looks like, Alpha." Cale's smile was fierce and beautiful and terrifying. Together, they emerged from the tunnels into blinding sunrise. The execution platform stood in the center of the pack grounds, surrounded by hundreds of wolves. The executioner waited, blade gleaming. Elder Thorn stood at the front of the council, his expression smug, victorious. Then he saw Cale and Alina walking side by side, flanked by a dozen loyal wolves carrying armfuls of documents. Thorn's face went white. Cale's voice rang out, amplified by Alpha command, silencing the crowd instantly. "My pack, you came here expecting justice. You came expecting to watch a murderer pay for her crimes, and justice is exactly what you'll receive today." He gestured to Alina. "But not from this woman. Alina Thornwood is innocent. She was framed by the same council that framed her mother 15 years ago. Framed because she was convenient, powerless, easy to blame." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elder Thorn stepped forward. "Alpha Cale, you're not thinking clearly. The evidence." "The evidence was manufactured." Cale pulled out his father's journal, held it high. "My father knew. He documented everything. Every lie you told, every secret you sold, every innocent person you destroyed to maintain your power. He was too afraid to act on it. I'm not." He began reading. Names, dates, crimes. The pack listened in growing horror as 15 years of corruption poured out into the morning light. Financial records showing Thorn's embezzlement. Testimonies from wolves who'd been threatened into silence. Letters proving the council had orchestrated Lydia Thornwood's execution to hide their own crimes. When Cale finished, the silence was deafening. Then Alina stepped forward. Her voice was quieter than Cale's, but no less powerful. "My mother died begging for truth. I spent 3 days in a cell waiting to die for a murder I didn't commit. How many others? How many other innocent wolves has this council destroyed while you all stood by and let them?" A growl rose from the crowd, not directed at her, directed at the council. Elder Thorn tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Cale's loyal wolves blocked his path. The other council members scattered, but they were surrounded, trapped by the very pack they'd manipulated for years. Cale's eyes flashed silver. "Elder Thorn, you are charged with treason, corruption, and the murders of Luna Stormborn, Lydia Thornwood, and Beta Marcus. How do you plead?" Thorn's face twisted with rage. "You're making a mistake, boy. You think you can tear down the council and still hold this pack together. You'll have chaos, weakness. Other alphas will smell blood and attack." "Then let them come." Cale's voice was ice and fury. "I'd rather fight honest enemies than harbor corrupt allies." He turned to the pack. "Today, the old council falls. Tomorrow, we build something better, something worthy of the wolves who died for truth. Who's with me?" The response was immediate, overwhelming. Howls rose from hundreds of throats, a sound of fury and grief and hope all tangled together. The younger wolves surged forward, surrounding Cale and Alina in a protective circle. Even some of the older pack members, the ones who'd served under the council for years, joined the cry. The revolution lasted 3 hours. By midday, the entire council was in chains. Elder Thorn faced the same execution platform he'd prepared for Alina, and when the blade fell, the pack's howl of approval shook the trees. Elena stood beside Kale throughout it all, watching justice finally, impossibly arrive. Her hands trembled, her heart ached, but she stood. When it was over, when the blood was washed away and the pack began to disperse, Kale found her standing beneath the old oak tree where her mother used to teach healing. "You did it," Elena said quietly. "You burned it all down." "We did it." Kale stopped beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. "You gave me the courage to stand. You reminded me that truth matters more than peace." "What happens now?" "Now we rebuild, choose a new council from wolves we can trust, hunt down the rest of Thorn's network, prove to other packs that Stormborn is still strong, maybe stronger than before." He paused. "And I was hoping you'd stay. Help me. Your mother was one of our greatest healers. You carry her knowledge, her strength." "I'm packless, wolfless, I can't even shift." "You stood before an alpha and demanded justice when you had every reason to beg for mercy. You chose truth over survival." Kale turned to face her fully. "That's more wolf than most shifters I know. That's more strength than the council ever had." Elena met his eyes. Silver and burning, but this time not with judgment, with something that looked almost like awe. "My mother used to say the moon sees what men forget," she whispered. "Then maybe it's time we started remembering." Kale held out his hand again, not as alpha to subject, as equal to equal. "Stay, Elena Thornwood. Help me build the pack your mother dreamed of." She took his hand. The touch still sent electricity racing through her, that strange recognition her broken wolf somehow sensed. Maybe one day she'd understand it. Maybe one day she'd shift beneath the moon and run beside him. Or maybe she'd remain human, remain different, and prove that strength came in forms the old wolves never imagined. Either way, she wasn't running, wasn't hiding, wasn't letting anyone write her ending for her. "I'll stay," she said, "but I'm not doing it quietly. I'm not pretending the past didn't happen. If we're rebuilding, we're doing it with eyes open and voices loud." Kale's smile was brilliant as sunrise. "I wouldn't have it any other way." They stood beneath the oak tree as the pack moved around them, building, healing, choosing hope over fear. And somewhere beyond sight, beyond knowing, maybe Lydia Thornwood watched her daughter standing tall and finally smiled. The girl who was meant to die at dawn became the woman who helped an alpha remember what justice truly meant. And that was the beginning of everything.